Welcome to our first guest connection of Boundless Gratitudes. And I am privileged and I am honored and my heart is moved to connect with Michelle Hazelton, who is a long-time family member, and she's the daughter of my sister. And we've both grown up through the years, going through our shifts, our changes, our transitions. And as we've grown, as we've evolved, we've appreciated a commonality unfolding that the two of us honor in regards to looking at life in a sensitive, expansive, open, moving manner. So we are sitting here in the burgeoning metropolis of Calpine, population 200, sitting on the outskirts of nowhere. And so the first question I have for Michelle is, how did Calpine show up as a home base? Because she and her husband and her little one Jackson, this is home base, and they embrace this community, and they're an integral part of this community. So, Michelle.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for being here and giving me this honored time together. But Calpine, we were attracted to the Sierra Valley a long time ago. Kurt, my husband, brought me here to the valley on a first date so long ago, and to see the Sierra Buttes, which is also called the Las Sierras, and they're part of the Sierra Nevada mountain range, but they call them the Las Sierras because they're sort of this separate little chunk that they say got lost along the way. So, and they're absolutely magical and breathtaking. And so he brought me here on our first date, and then we started coming here and playing here all the time, and ended up getting married in the mountains here, as you know, and
I had the pleasure of being present.
You did.
It's very special.
And yeah, it was a magical day. And then we've been trying to get back here ever since our wedding, And that was now, I want to say a little over 10 years ago.
Wow.
And Kurt was actually the first one to land a job out here because it's very remote, obviously. So, and we moved out here, and I was a little nervous. But it was the best thing we ever did because the open spaces, the lack of rush of life is the best thing we ever did. I feel more alive. I felt like I could just breathe easier. My whole life started to really open up and be more full because of that. And so the valley has so many little pockets, and so Calpine is such a beautiful community. There's so many people here that live here full time, and families all very like-minded and all striving for the same sort of goals in life and living on land, being a part of the land, and we really liked that. So
yes,
we ended up in Calpine. But something fun that you should know, the valley has an aura about it. Many people talk about it once you drive into the Sierra Valley. I'm sure you feel it all the time.
Sierra Valley, and it's north of Truckee, about 25 minutes.
Right. And the Maidu were the original settlers here, and they believed so much in this valley and the power of the healing of it. And because there's the three mountain peaks, and it's Haskell Peak, Mount Elwell, and Mount Washington, and they make up a triangle, which is also symbolic for a woman's womb. And when you look at this triangle from above, there's all of these little water tributaries that run through it, and they all link up together to join the Feather River.
Oh, wow.
So it's really magical.
Yeah.
And so because of that, there's a real feminine energy here that really pulls. It's very healing and nourishing, and people are very drawn to it. It's very healing, and those nurturing powers that it gives. So it's really a beautiful space to live in and be a part of. So yeah, I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, I love this area. We've been coming here for, plus 45 years. And my heart's just opened up to the magnificence of the space and the beauty of the environs and the energy as you speak. It always softens me and helps me release that which I've been holding on to in the valley, or that which distracts me.
Right.
So here we are,
Yeah.
in the midst of the womb.
That's right.
So and it's here that you've really developed this creative spark that's become a fire in you as an artist. Tell us a little more about that. And what are you featuring in your art, and what is your intention for such?
Well, my art all starts with, I have a very deep belonging in nature. And it all starts with nature. So here I feel very, very connected to it. And I am fortunate enough to be in such an open spaces that I'm able to go out every single day and be completely absorbed in Mother Earth. And she holds me in a space that I don't find anywhere else. So and so with her, I find all of my inspiration and unravelings, if you will, through there. And so my art is sort of my soul's work, and it's something that I have to do. It's in me, and it has to come out. And my art is sort of a translation of that conversation, of the deep belonging that I have with Mother Nature. And my hope is that it can touch someone else's life, and they can feel that, and they resonate with it as well, and perhaps are able to find something in it within themselves that brings them peace and comfort.
Yes.
And but it all starts with her. I mean, that's where my inspiration comes from. I see maybe a pine cone, and I pick it up, and I just all of a sudden the vision is there, and then I can't stop thinking about it. I can't stop thinking about what I'm going to create, and whether that's in a weaving or and with fiber or with pine needle baskets, and then it just sort of transpires. And my work, I work really closely with my work because, again, it's my soul's work, so I feel very connected to it. So I like to make sure that the conversation's open, that I'm in the right space when I am communicating with my art, and I let it sort of organically shift as it needs to. I mean, I always have a vision. It doesn't always turn out the way that the vision is there, but it guides me to something so much better. And so I let the pine needles, for instance, a pine needle basket, I'll start with this, I think, okay, it's going to be this big, and I have sort of a design in mind. Maybe I'm replicating a feeling or a place or that pine cone that I picked up, and then it just sort of starts to, I let the needles, they have all their own energy, their own personal energy from the earth. And so I sort of let them guide me. And sometimes in my vision, the walls may have gone straight up, but in the end, the basket may be this sweet little curve, and that's okay. And so I let it tell its story as well as mine. And I never push it. I allow my creations to, I allow us to work together. So if I'm not in a good energy space, then we don't, if we're not communicating. I had a basket that I worked on for, it was probably a few years' time. And not because it took that long to make, but because there was a moment that I thought I was stuck. And I thought, oh, we've stopped talking for a little while. So I put it away. And then it was probably a good year later, I started dreaming about it again and feeling it again. And so I picked it back up, and then we just picked up where we left off. Wow. But I don't push it. You know what I mean? I have to make sure we're communicating. So it's slow work, but it's very meaningful and purposeful.
It's slow in the flow.
Slow in the flow. Yeah.
Michelle is our first conscious business to be honored on our website. A conscious business, to put it simply, is one that is delivering their product and service for the highest good of all concerned. So she's moved to do what she does. She's moved to share it with others, and others are moved to receive the beauty that she creates. You've been through some history in your life. Can you give us a run? Just give us a sort of a snapshot of where you came from in down home Pleasanton, California, And well, I don't know how traditional the household was, knowing my sister and your dad. And just give us a sense of what's transpired and what some key experiences in your life that opened you up to discover who you are. Please.
Absolutely. Well, it's definitely not a short story, but I will do my best. From the beginning, I had I had a great childhood. I was very strong in roots of family, and both my parents were amazing, and I have two sisters as well, and they exposed us to so much with traveling in both natures and cities and
the world.
Yeah, and it was really nice. It was a good upbringing, and I always look back on it really fondly. And my mother definitely taught us girls all about strength and how to be strong women and in the world, and I will forever be grateful for that. But yeah, family is very important to me, and like I said, I look back on my childhood really fondly. It was never a bad childhood. My grandmother was my best friend, and I miss her dearly all the time. But yeah, and they sort of guided me. My family has guided me through my life to where I am. And the thing about family is I've learned so much about how family is much more than just your immediate family, much more than blood. And I've certainly gained a lot of family along the way. But I certainly struggled, not necessarily because of my upbringing, but just because I have brought a lot of past trauma from my previous lives into this one. And so, and as a teenager growing up, it's hard to figure out how to deal with all that and where you are, and it's uncomfortable and awkward, and it's a strange time in life, and you're trying to figure out where you fit in, and if you do have those feelings of past lives and you remember some of that trauma, I didn't have the tools to know how to handle or deal with it. And at the time I wasn't exposed to anyone, any healers or anyone who could help guide me. And so it's very lost.
At that time, did you actually label the strife you were experiencing as indicative of unresolved issues from previous lifetime, or is that something that lifetimes, is that something that you've understood over time?
Yes, something I've understood over time.
Okay,
that is made that way. But I did know when I was younger, that there was definitely something, I just didn't fit. I was seeing things differently. I was feeling things differently in a deeper level than just what was in front of me, and I couldn't understand it. And so I turned a lot to drugs and alcohol on probably a scale that was a little scary for most people. But I don't regret it. I don't regret any choices in my life. I think they've all led me to where I am today, and I'm grateful for all of that. But it was quite a journey, and I also found myself in very ugly, abusive relationships, and so my road was very challenging for a long time, and I cut out all of my family for a really, really long time. Until one day I found myself in Colorado. And down in Colorado is the San Juan Mountains, beautiful area, another powerful valley. And I was dabbling in school a little bit, and just for probably the fourth time, and trying to figure it all out. But down there in the Rio Grande Valley, it's also called the Rio Grande Valley. I know that's just depends on who you talk to, but it's on the border of New Mexico and Colorado, and there I discovered weaving. And weaving is a big part of their life still to the people there. They use it for all in their life, just as function and aesthetically. A lot of artists, it's a beautiful way of life, and still raising their own sheep. They're trying to bring back a lot of the old traditions of weaving and what it means to be in their family, and that family roots. And I just discovered weaving, and I found that I could turn to it as a safe place, a safe space that only I could create for myself, and where I felt that I could just be completely who I was, and I could process the world when the world got a little heavy, and that could either be in joy or comfort or sadness or all of those emotions, but it was very freeing, and there's so much gratitude I felt for that. So I started turning to weaving more and more as sort of a sanctuary for myself.
Yes.
And I've been doing it ever since. And it's of course evolved, and I'm no longer in the world of drugs and alcohol to that degree. So
when you were going through that strife and struggle, what was the relationship? How did were your parents available for you? And to what degree? How did they make a difference in you moving through this gauntlet?
Yeah, they actually were a huge support system, even though I wasn't willing to receive it as much. But my mom would always call at least once a month. Whether or not I talked to her or not was another story. But she just kept throwing out the fishing line. Kept throwing it out, hoping that she would catch me, And I give her a lot of credit. I know that wasn't easy for her to do that. And I know as mother, I have so much more appreciation for what they've been through with me, and that the trials, that's very hard. And even still, when it seemed like all else was lost, and I because she did that, I always knew that they were there, regardless of whatever happened. And so when things got really bad and I had nowhere else to turn, I didn't know what else to do, I called her. And there was I didn't have to explain anything, and my dad just said, I will be right there. And he drove all the way from California to Colorado, and he knocked on my door one day, and he said, okay, let's pack up your stuff and let's go home.
Wow.
And it took me off guard, because for someone to actually take charge of me emotionally a little bit was a big deal for me.
Yes.
But I surrendered, and we did exactly that. We packed up all my stuff and we came home. And there's a lot of things I don't remember, and I may never remember.
Yes.
But I know there was a lot of heartache, a lot of healing that had to be done, and try to navigate through the world.
So what would you consider were maybe three strengths or values or commitments that moved you through a very difficult time? What kept you going? Because you could have gone down the rabbit hole and we wouldn't be having this conversation today. You got into your art. Something before that moved you to even get into the art, to surrender to it. So have you looked at what are the gifts that the universe has given you that allowed you to make this actually a wonderful dynamic step forward, even though it was tough as hell?
I don't know, I would just have to say that I never, throughout all of it, I never thought about giving up. And good. No matter how deep I was or whatnot, it never occurred to me through all of that time to ever give up. And I just didn't get it. I didn't get the world that I was in. I didn't understand where my purpose was. I was having just a really hard time trying to figure it out. And it led me to some very bad decisions. But again, even in the thick of things, I never had a feeling of surrendering my life.
You had it.
That makes sense.
Yeah, the two words that I think of is an earnest intention to be realized. You had to realize whatever your intention to be in life was all about, and that moved you through some very difficult times. So you may not, and probably weren't conscious fully of those moments.
Right. And I give a lot of credit to my parents, because they because of the upbringing I had, I think that certainly gave me the strength that I needed to keep pushing forward. I think they gave me that foundation, and even in all those times, I've never found myself without nature. And my father was one of the first people to teach me about that. He's a big gardener, and in his own way, he would, he'd teach me about the plants and how to dabble outside. He was always outside when we were kids, and I was sort of his little shadow when I was young, and he gave me my very first appreciation of what that felt like to be part of nature, I think, and just in our travels as well, and so instilling that, and then when I of course got old, I always had nature to turn to. I feel like that's always been there. And again, the strength that my mother created in all of us, unknowingly probably, but that was on her part huge. And
so when you got back to California, what kept you moving forward? What was the difference in your attitude that unfolded as distinct from what the trauma that you had just experienced for a number of years?
Yeah, well, I started to find people to help me, and so
you asked for help.
I asked for help.
Wow.
It was a big transition.
Challenge for many of us.
Yeah, it was a big transition, but it was so beautiful because I was able to figure a lot of things out.
Yeah.
And when you just find the right people to talk to, my family's great, but they are certainly not. I'm not sure that they have the skills, on a deep spiritual level to give me what I needed. For. So it was really nice to find healers and people to talk to help guide me on the journey towards healing myself and starting a path that was much more complementary to what I needed to do. Yeah.
And then something very transformational happened for you just in the last, was it 2 years, year and a half?
Yeah, year and a half.
Well, very transformational because wholly unexpected. It just came out of left field. Tell us about that.
So that was the other big thing. So I get my life on track, and I'm doing amazing. I've at this point worked with a ton of healers and a lot of amazing teachers, and then my husband and I, we really wanted a family, and we got married over 10 years ago now. We really wanted a family, so we've been trying for a long time. A little over, well, it was close to 10 years.
Wow.
As well.
Wow.
Yeah. Tried everything under the sun.
Yes.
And except we did say no to. We finally stopped at IVF. That was our last stop on the journey. But we definitely tried everything from natural to not unnatural, and we did a lot of work, and that's a journey. Wow, that's a journey. Every month, every day, that's a journey. And
so you went through some significant mood cycles, I would imagine, because this was important to both of you.
This is huge, and in that time, I'd gotten pregnant really early on in our in that journey together, and I miscarried, and so it was really hard because we couldn't figure out why I couldn't never get pregnant again. And nobody could figure it out. The doctors couldn't figure it. It was just really challenging. And then so we had to grieve a lot of loss because we had to grieve the loss of that unborn child, and because we couldn't have a family. And then what that looked like for our relationship, just healing that.
Yes.
That was something we couldn't give each other that we really wanted.
Yes.
So yeah, after a good 10 years of trying to have a family, we shut the book and said, okay. We sought out therapy again, and we found our peace, and we moved on, and we said, okay, it's okay. Our life is going to be just as cool without a family, and we knew that, and in some deep ingrained part of us. We thought that our purpose, our path was, it eventually was going to unfold for there was always a reason. I really believe that. There's a reason for everything. So we just allowed it to happen. And then one day, just out of nowhere, I thought I completely forgot that I missed my cycle. And I thought, that's weird.
Yeah.
That never happens. I'm like a
And how old are you?
I am 41.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so I thought, oh, this is ridiculous. So I did the whole what ifs journey, and I thought, oh, Michelle, don't do this again. Don't do this what ifs thing. It's terrible. It's heartbreaking. We've been through that. So I just went down to our little hunky country store and I got a pregnancy test, and the clerk told me, she says, oh, here you go, honey, I'll put it in a little bag. She was so sweet about it. She goes, I won't tell anyone. I said, thank you. Rumors spread like wildfire around here. So came home, I took the test, and I could not believe it was positive.
Wow.
I cried, I laughed. I did this huge emotional journey for probably the entire day. And all the animals were surrounded me, just had no idea what was going on.
You were alone. Kurt wasn't here yet.
Kurt was working. He came home and I said, you gotta sit down. And he sat down and I told him, and he said, he goes, what? And I said, take your time.
Yeah.
I've had it all day to process. And he sat there for 2 hours before he said anything.
Wow.
And he finally said, okay, wait, now, you're pregnant? What is that? I said, I know. And still to this day, I would say we still find it pretty surreal.
Oh, that.
And he's magical, my little boy. And
yes. His name is Jackson. Yes.
And so I now, there's a lot of things that I do now. I help women who are going through a lot of the same issues with fertility, and I'm always available. So if anyone wants to talk, I've been through all of it. I've been through all of the emotions, all the procedures.
Yes. So
I really open my home and my heart up to anyone who needs support. And I find that we lack a lot of support for women in that area. But as well as domestic abuse. So I am also available for women in that support system. But but Jackson he's taught me a lot of lessons, and the biggest thing he taught me from being born is, which is hard, but if we just let our life unfold naturally the way that it is supposed to be, instead of trying to have so much control over it, it'll happen. Things will just naturally, if they're meant to be in your life, just allowing your life to naturally unfold without interjecting. And that's hard. It's hard. Yeah. It's a hard thing to do, but he's taught me. I thought I really nailed letting go down, but he has taught me every day how to let go more and more. And wow, I mean that's a daily journey, isn't it? But
he sounds like the living example of trusting in the flow of I don't know, and God does. And that's it.
Exactly. That's right.
And just go with grace.
And just trusting.
Yeah.
We can't worry and trusting God at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me ask you about balance. Now you have a child. You do your art as you are moved to do so. You sponsor numerous classes. You are available for counsel, for guidance. You are creating a magnificent homestead here in Calpine. The flowers outside are just ravishingly beautiful. And this place just has such a sense of warmth, and it's just home base that we all aspire to have in our homes. So how do you maintain a sense of balance? What is balance for you? Is it important?
It is very important. I think it's important for all of us. Balance is tricky. We always have to ask ourselves if we're out of balance. We don't often know if we're out of balance before sometimes it's gone over the edge. But balance is really important. So for myself, I just try to be so mindful every day. And And I do set up plans for my day. You know, sometimes I have to work, sometimes I have to tend to the garden, sometimes I have to make my home what it is as far as cooking or cleaning or whatnot. But I think the best way for me to balance my life is I try to let it unfold naturally as best as possible. So I'll have plans, but with Jackson now, things often go a little off the beaten path, but I'm really loving that. I'm really embracing that, and learning just to kind of go with the flow with the day. And I love tending my home. I love being a part of it. I love tending in the garden. I love cooking for my family. I love creating art, like you said, and then of course I have work that needs to be done as well. But I think just making sure that you're not doing too much of one thing, and so that you're constantly, being able to. You obviously don't have time enough in one day for everything, but if we just sort of pick and choose what's important for the day, and then do that, and just be okay with that, and then move on to the next day and do what we can, and remember that we're only human, and just doing the best we can. It doesn't all have to be done in one day.
Yes.
And that's a hard thing to grasp.
We don't have to be driving 24/7.
No, we don't. So, and just being mindful of that and having some sort of self-control, I think, is hard. But learning how to have some self-control and saying, okay, that's enough. I need to rest, or I need to do this. I mean, for myself, if I don't do my art, I think I go a little crazy. So I need it for my sanity, and so I know to fit these things in to find that balance.
And then you and your husband have to communicate to assure you are not necessarily in the same end of the wavelength, but you're on the same wavelength.
Right.
And then accommodating, complimenting, and releasing each other.
Yeah, I have to be a mother, a wife, a daughter, a sister. Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah. But I feel blessed. I'm very blessed. I have a very full life.
So if you were to, what do you feel are you on target with knowing who you are as a contribution, as a gift to life? What is that?
Yeah, I think, I believe that I am. I mean, perhaps the gods have something else stored up in there for me, but for now, I think I feel really good about where my life is right now. I feel very full. I feel like I'm listening, I'm open, and I'm hearing, and I'm going with my life's purpose and my soul's purpose, and which is spreading more art and teaching people how to find that sacred space within themselves, like I have found, and sharing that space with others, and doing that. We do that. Since I am able to do that through art, I feel that's what I'm sharing to the world, is teaching them art, so that they can find that sacred space within themselves, and that intimate connection. And I'm also big on bringing community together. We've really forgotten the ties that binds us all together, and so teaching in community as well, which I really love, and honoring that connection in that space too. So that's, I feel really, I do feel like this is that calling has been so strong. And when Jackson was born, that really was even
blossomed even fuller.
Big, huge. I mean, he really even more pushed all of that out of me.
Wow.
It was amazing to feel, and I've been really going strong. I've been on a really big power surge ever since he was born, and I'm grateful for that. So any words of wisdom, of inspiration that have guided you through your life, that it just stays with you, those words? Well, there's so many, honestly. I have a lot of quotes that are always in my head, but two of them in particular that I would say I feel have really guided have really stayed there. And one is, it's a Zen verse that I love, and it's, if you understand, things are just as they are. If you don't understand, things are just as they are.
Yes.
So I love that. It brings me a lot of strength sometimes. A lot of letting go
Well
with
done.
just that one. Right?
Yes.
And the other one is from Frank Zappa.
Mm-hmm.
And his is, without deviation, progress is not possible.
Mm.
And don't you love that? Because
Yes.
as enlightened as we may think that we are, sometimes we are always, there's always things that steer you off your path. And so just staying mindful about what you find peace in, but it comes in waves constantly. I think the society is set up very differently than our lives can sometimes handle. So
Yes.
we're always finding that deviation and knowing that is okay. And there's a lot of room for forgiveness, of course, in that, you
Yes.
should deviate and should make mistakes because it allows you to keep knowing what your inner light is and keep feeding it that strength and coming back to your centering, and it's good.
Yes.
It's good for us. Yeah.
There's a saying that is the base of a drawing of a mountain, and it says, inch by inch, foot by foot, step by step, and then you see the summit. And what that does for me is it reminds me that we're all climbing our own summit in life. Mm-hmm. And it's a never-ending journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when it ends, then it's time for the next lifetime.
That's right.
Whatever that might be.
That's right.
So I thank you, Michelle, for the authenticity of heart, of soul, of mind that you share with us. You make a difference. You are a difference for me.
Thank you.
And I trust that you, our audience, appreciate that these exchanges that we have, this exchange that we've just experienced, generates or supports you in your own reflections, your own self-inquiry, to see that we have a greater commonality as human beings than we realize. We stress so much in America and in the world to be an individual. And yes, be an individual and remember that we are all connected and we're not so different.
Right.
We're just going through different stages.
That's right.
So thank you, Michelle.
Thank you
Yes.
so much. So grateful.
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
For listening.